morning, Jennifer Elwell, Director of Communications for the Kentucky Corn Growers Association, will give you insight on how best to address these and other questions and help us reach common ground. Please help me in welcoming Ms. Jennifer.
I was supposed to talk at the Young Farm Bureau conference back in January, and it snowed, and I wasn't able to make it. So I'm glad that I was able to come here this time and be able to talk to you all. This is a very important subject to me, and just to kind of give you a little background, why I guess I'm experienced enough to talk about this topic, is that I've worked for the Kentucky Corn Growers for the past 16 years, and in 2010, the National Corn Growers and the United Soybean Board thought we really got to do something just to tell the story. And that's something that you all have heard for several years now. You need to get out and share our story, because the people that are against everything we're doing, they're a lot louder than we are. So the National Corn Growers and the United Soybean Board put their heads together, they hired a PR firm, and they're like, the women are the key. They need to get out and talk with other moms, because we have families too, and women have the buying power now. So the program is called Common Ground, and it is basically, the premise is farm moms going out and talking with other moms, sharing their experiences, saying, I feed my children the same food that I provide on my farm. And that was in 2010, and that kind of got me really excited. And I'm like, I can do something too. I'm going to support my farmers to go out and talk, but I can also have a voice. So I started blogging. My blog was called Food Mommy. And that kind of comes from the child's point of view. You always got a kid saying, feed me. And with all the information out there, we're kind of like, oh my gosh, what is safe to feed my child these days? Because there's something wrong with everything. I grew up in the 80s, and fat was the worst thing in the world if you were on a diet. And now, it's not so bad anymore. Now it's sugar, or trans fats, and it seems to change every few years about what the worst thing you could eat is. Now, GMOs. People are trying to kick this us. And more people want us to eat less meat. And then you hear another study, well, actually meat's really good for you. You need to cut out the grains. Of course, that really hurts me since I work for the grain and the small grain wheat farmers. So it's like, man, it's like it never ends. But a lot of research has been done lately about the best way to tell our story. A few years ago, we were really quick to spout out scientific information. And most people just kind of tune out when they hear that. They don't want to hear about the latest study. They don't want to know that you've been farming. You're now the 5th generation. They want to know that you feel the same way they do. When they go to the grocery or they go to the farmer's market, they want to know about your farm. They want to know where you go to church. And most of the research is showing that it doesn't matter how competent you are at your job. It's, do you share the same values as I do? So it's finding those people that you can connect with. The more I think about it, food these days, it's kind of like religion. We really want to have other people believe just what we do. But is that what we really need to do? Food is a very emotional, personal subject. We grew up eating certain foods. There's a lot of us grew up on the farm. You're raising your own animals a lot of the time. You've got a garden. So that's very deep and personal to you. And somebody else that didn't grow up on the farm, they have different ideas. It seems like all the bad information, like what's the bad thing for you? Why is everybody targeting the food industry and farmers and agriculture? And I think today, because we are so much more aware of different diseases, we have so much more knowledge, and it's like, why are more people getting cancer? And they just want something to point to. They want to find something. Why is this happening to me? Oh, happening to me. It must be something that I ate. It must be something in the environment. And unfortunately, people are pointing their fingers at farmers because everybody has to. So there's so many reasons for food choices. And you shouldn't always assume that someone feels a certain way, or you shouldn't necessarily assume that just because, say, a vegan, well, they just hate the idea of eating meat, and they think, animals are people. You should not always assume that. I got to sit on an airplane with a girl, and it's amazing how my conversations, the way I have a conversation has changed over the last few years. In the beginning, you have a conversation with someone, and I remember a lady told me that she only bought organic eggs, and I instantly said, "That's the dumbest thing I've heard. Why would you do that? They're so expensive." Wow. And of course, no offense to anyone in here that's growing organic eggs. And I got louder and louder, and everybody started looking at me. And now I'm very quick to, you gotta wait. You gotta have a conversation with someone. Don't instantly start in on the agriculture conversations. Get to know them. So another lady sits next to me, and we start talking. We're talking about the traveling. She had some great shoes on. She liked my shoes. So we get into talk about fashion. And I love what I do so much that I always try to work for farmers. There is always an opportunity to share the message of what our farmers are doing. So she's like, well, instantly she says, "I'm a vegan." I'm like, "Oh, well, great for you." And she didn't grow up in the city. She grew up on a cattle and grain farm in Canada. She just said, when I was 3, she's like, "I just love the animals so much." She's like, even from that young age, she's like, I just couldn't eat them. It just didn't feel right to me. So she's like, "I've just done it ever since." And I talked more to her, and she said, it's very difficult to be a vegan these days because other vegans are always watching you. And they will be quick to point out that you're doing something very wrong. Yeah. And, we had great conversation. And I was wondering, I knew she knew my shoes for leather. But she said she liked my shoes, and I'm like, okay, great. But we talked, and she had a friend that husband had some really bad health problems. And the doctor was convinced it was because of his diet. And he had a really high meat-eating diet. And we're all different. We're not all made the same way. Some of us do better on, I think we all should eat more fruits and vegetables, but, we're not made the same way. Some people can smoke their entire lives and not have a problem, and then somebody else could, be around someone that smokes and die of lung cancer. So, we all have choices to make. You look at the risks, and, you make those choices. What works best for you. But people are always asking questions now. But we have who's going to answer them first. And there are some people that already have their minds made up. And I look at it as kind of there's kind of cults in the food world. You have your strong, you might have someone that only wants to eat vegan, which is no animal products whatsoever, and they worry about even the products they use and what they put on their body, everything. No animals whatsoever. And then you have your extreme meat eaters. The Atkins diet came out. And I couldn't do that. It made me so tired. But it worked really great for other people. Paleo diet, that's a new fad right now. I really don't understand it. Now the new buzzword is clean eating. What does that really mean, clean eating? It's like if you're eating it from the farm, I think it should be dirty, just knock the dirt off. Direct from the farm. But they're trying to find that niche. And it's very social. They hear things floating around, and then they don't quite understand it, but it's kind of the cool thing to be talking about. I had a gentleman that my sister was dating come over for Easter, and we hadn't met him before. Didn't know a whole lot about him. But we got talking about, healthy eating, and he's like, oh yeah, he's like, I don't want any of that GMO stuff. That company, Montessori? He's like, yeah, that's just bad. And I kind of look at him, I'm just like, yeah, you really don't know, but, And then I explained, and I said, you know who I work for? So, well, let me try to, tell you a little more about what I know. And, did I leave an impression? Maybe somewhat. Maybe he would be, not so quick to jump into the conversation. And that's one of the things that it is an uncomfortable subject. Things like genetically modified organisms, antibiotics in our food, hormone use, animal welfare. Those are tough. So do you all find yourself kind of backing away when you hear those things? Because it's like, I don't want to get into that because I don't know what happened. Is that kind of the case? Well, sometimes we don't know. And it's okay to say, I don't know. But you want to build up trust with someone. You want to let them know where you came from, why you do the certain things that you do on your farm. And, even though I'm going to try to focus on, genetically modified organisms today, because I think that's one of the toughest issues, and there's a lot that we don't understand. And right off, I'm going to ask, is there anybody in here that is against or doesn't know anything about it, or not too sure, they don't want to grow it, or it's just kind of something you want to learn about? Because, I don't want to assume either, because there are farmers that choose to grow non-GMO crops, and that's fine. And I truly believe that we need a lot of diversity in agriculture. I think that is paramount. And it's good that we have lots of different growing options and production systems. And I think it helps keep us safe, lots of diversity, and it's going to provide food security. But, our goals for the conversation with any, we got to find that common ground, figure out, what kind of makes that person tick, where their emotions are coming from, be very cognizant of those types of things. Can you see? I'll try to move around. And then there's also shock factor. You're going to see some images in my presentation you're going to go, if I saw that, there's no way I would eat those GMOs. I recently went to Washington, D.C. with the Kentucky Ag Leadership Program. And they push us out of our comfort zone. And we met with the Environmental Working Group. They are the ones that publish how many subsidies all the farmers get. And they're also the group that says you need to eat less meat for making the environment more green. So they're pushing the Meatless Mondays. And we met with them. We also met with the Humane Society of the U.S. That was tough because they are very good at what they do. And he had a presentation, and he picked on Kentucky for what's going on in our state. He's using visuals, talking about chickens, for egg laying production. They are a lot of them are put in battery cages. And he held up a piece of paper, and he folded it almost in half. This is how much space a chicken is supposed to have. And you're instantly like, ooh, really? And that sticks with people. So we also need to find those visuals for people. We need to show them pictures of our farm. We need to show them pictures of our family and what we're doing. Explain what the big machine is with the really long arms on either side. But once you move them kind of past the shock factor, and I really try to do that because, I'm quick to instantly say, oh my gosh, I need to think about that. But you have to have them slow down and think, what's the science behind this? Why are they doing this? Do you think farmers are deliberately trying to harm us through our food? No. There's science behind it. Someone has tested it. And then also we need to think, about their emotions as well. And if there's something that we can do better, maybe we need to have that conversation. And we also want to have questions without accusation. In the past, why the heck do you want to buy organic eggs? They're so expensive now. That's what I would say. And that instantly puts somebody on the defensive. You're questioning my values. Shame on you. So we don't want to do that. And we want to be honest. Again, if you don't know, say, I don't know. I'm not really sure. And if it's something, if you grow only livestock and you don't grow grain crops, say, I'm not an expert on that, but I can find someone that is. And we just want to be real. So now we're just going to talk about this subject because I know quite a bit about it. I was invited to a public forum back in August. It was a one-on-one. I don't want to really call it a debate, but I had my counter person was someone with the Whole Life Food Buying Club. No GMOs, all local. He supported raw milk. Did a lot of legal stuff to make sure that farmers were able to sell the products that they wanted to sell. So I knew what I was in for. I walked into the Lion's Den. They had a very large audience. and I had my family. I made my family come, and I had a couple coworkers, and that was about it. You know, it was a little small group, and the rest of it was all of their customers and, you know, people that they were close to, and I'm like, yikes. Because there's just, people don't know a whole lot about GMOs. I found this in a magazine. I went to South Africa recently, and they kind of have a different view of GMOs than we do. Not a whole lot of people are asking questions. They are a lot more hungry in South Africa and African nations. So this is going to make things better. This is going to provide more food for us. So there's a different mindset there. But yeah, it's just like, I'm trying to tell you that I'm just misunderstood. So it's our job to provide some more information. And obviously, if we don't understand something, we're quick to fear it. And it's the greatest enemy. And if you're scared, are you quick to try to appease somebody? Or, you know, well, I don't really know, but this sounds really good. So fear makes us kind of say, well, and people, you know, they may be trying to make things up. There's some examples here of the Dr. Oz show. It's like, you know, it's just literally not true, some of the information that he shared. So what are we up against? Movies. This was a movie, GMO, OMG. Food Inc. was one that came out. And of course, everybody watches Dr. Oz. Y'all, I mean, every once in a while, I'll turn it on and there's some good information on there. They had the 4-minute workout guy and said you could lose weight in a 4-minute. I'm like, sign me up for that. And I've been doing it for the last few couple weeks. We'll come back. I'm going to actually show you. But they are very good at using those visuals. I don't have a clip of it here, but they did have a GMO segment specifically talking about herbicide use and how it has increased. Well, yes, with the Roundup Ready soybeans and corn, that was specifically developed so you could spray Roundup and kill your weed problems while the crop is in the ground. Roundup use has gone up, but so many of the more harmful chemicals has gone down tremendously. But they just focused on the amount of Roundup that had been used. And they had somebody in a full, like, Tyvek suit and a mask and a sprayer. And they're like, well, this is how much was used in the old days before GMO. One little person with their little sprayer. Now, since we've had Roundup Ready soybeans and corn, they had 50 people walk on stage with that Genetically. That's how much we use now. And I was like, ah. So, it's not that they were being untruthful, but they were sharing it and how it benefited them to make a point. And of course, there was nobody there to counter that message. So that's a good visual. I mean, you remember that. I always love this. One person is very smart. This came from Men in Black. But people together are like, you know, they're dumb, panicky, dangerous animals. You know it. They like to go with the crowd. It's very hard to kind of have, you know, have your own opinion on things. And what do we know? You know, I thought this was good too. How much did we not know 1,500 years ago? We were convinced the world was flat. And how much will we know tomorrow? It's all about gathering information. So I'm going to show you this clip, and I apologize. No matter how I tried, you're going to see a commercial. That's one of the ways Dr. Oz makes his money. And he makes me so mad sometimes because
Big heart health benefits?
one day he came on and said nail polish is the worst thing ever. And nail polish remover, it's going to age you. Get it out of your house right now. Throw it away. And then the next year...
Here's a picture of some of these rats.
You need nail polish.
And these are tumors coming out of these animals?
Yeah, most of the female rats got breast cancer,
That's a good
most of the male rats got
visual,
intra-abdominal cancer. There were problems with the kidneys, the liver, and the pituitary.
So, Jeffrey, if these claims are the pretty serious ones are true, why, you know, how can it be this information is being ignored?
Well, the cover-up started more than 20 years ago, when the FDA's own scientists repeatedly urged their superiors to require long-term study, because they said these foods were dangerous. They said they could create allergies, toxins, new diseases, and nutritional problems. But the FDA policy came out ignoring the scientists, saying no safety studies were necessary, no labeling was necessary.
That is not-
So they've ignored the science, and now they have what's called kind of tobacco science, short-term animal feeding studies, studies designed to avoid finding problems. They've got bad science down to a science.
Well, Jeffrey, Dr. Bruno, thank you for joining us. We're going to leave the stage now, as we agreed on. Thank you very much. I want to welcome, as these scientists leave, Martina Newell McLaughlin. She's co-director of the NIH training program in molecular technology at UC Davis. Thank you very much for being here. Now, Martina believes genetically modified food is safe. So how do you respond to Jeffrey's claims that the genetically modified foods have not really been all that well tested and cause the health issues that they've described?
Well, actually, we've been genetically modifying foods for thousands of years. Modern techniques are far more precise, far more predictable, far more controlled than these older studies. In addition, they're more thoroughly tested than any food or egg process ever in the history of food and egg research. So to me, there have been thousands of experiments done. And in fact, I've been involved in some of those as external reviewers. There are no tests done on conventional crops whatsoever. You can produce them one day and sell them the next day. Biotech goes through 8 to 10 years of research before any of them are commercialized.
Could you help me understand that one study that Dr. Burnoff mentioned, where you had rats that had been fed genetically modified foods, and they had those large tumors on them?
Yeah. Well, if you look at rat kibble that has been fed to test rats for the last 15 to 20 years, a large proportion of that has actually been genetically modified, and there's been no increase whatsoever in the occurrence of spontaneous tumors above what you will already expect for this particular variety of rat.
You're a mom,
Yes.
and you feed your kids genetically modified foods with
Yeah, in fact,
motivation.
my number one concern is the safety of my family. No way am I going to feed them anything that isn't safe and nutritious. In fact, I would probably choose genetically modified foods over other foods to feed to my children because, in fact, I know that not alone are they safer, this is perhaps the most sustainable production system you can find out there.
So, to give some feedback from the FDA, we reached out to the American Medical Association. They gave us statements. They believe genetically modified food is safe, as you claim, but they support labeling. And here's what they had to say. The FDA argued that they support voluntary labeling that provides consumers with this information and has issued draft guidance to industry regarding such labeling. The AMA said that they support the FDA's science-based approach to special product labeling, recognizing there is currently no evidence, as you said, that there are material differences or safety concerns in available bioengineered foods. For the full statements, you can go to droz.com. Whether or not genetically modified foods cause health concerns or not, the reality is, my friends, that you are probably eating it today. Should it be labeled? That's really the big question we have to answer this year. And what will that end up costing you? That's next. On droz.com.
That's that. You think everybody was thinking about those that day? And it kind of made it seem that they're putting it in there and you don't know about it. So, we're letting the government run our food supply. So, who's this mom supposed to believe? She's pulling her hair out. You know, what information is out there? How do I avoid all of these nasty things? I just want to know the truth. I want to be able to go to the store and not worry about what's in my shopping cart. So, we are drowning in information but starving for knowledge, so that's where we come in. We try to provide what we know as best as we can. All those things we talked about. And it's not just TV, it's magazines. This was an Elle magazine, and that's a fashion magazine. A lady started having symptoms. She didn't know what was wrong with her. So she did her own research and was convinced it was GMO corn that was causing all of her problems. Now, I'm not going to say that it wasn't, but a lot of those processed foods, it's not just corn in there. There's probably 20 different ingredients that could be a corn. So it's very difficult to narrow down something like that. And thankfully, the ag community, the scientific community, they tried to respond as best as they could to this story. So one, we're going to recognize our fears. These are kind of the issues when it comes to GMOs. Are they safe? Do they cause cancer? Can you get allergies from them? Endocrine issues is another thing that they report. Inflammation. Are they environmentally friendly? Pesticide use, is it down or is it up? Are we promoting monoculture? You know, we're just gonna all have this one type of GMO corn, and it's all once disease hits, all wiped out. Or is it Monsanto ruining our food supply? Big ag, big business. You know, there's issues with farmers aren't allowed to save their seed, lawsuits, government overreaching their boundaries, property rights, drift. You know, if you have someone that's growing non-GMO corn and a neighbor farmer's got GMO corn, the wind does blow. Yes?
Wasn't there a KET special on where Monsanto sued a farmer in the South for reproducing his own seed and using it the following year, and Monsanto put them out of business?
Well, I don't know about the put out of business part, but yes, there was a case where a farmer tried. Now, most farmers agree that, you know, there's a lot of research and money put to develop those seeds to be able to reduce your inputs. So I've seen no disagreements there that you should not be allowed to save seed. That's proprietary information, so they need to gain those. They need to buy it every year. What happened with one farmer is he tried to kind of go around the system. Instead of saving it, what he did is he sold it to a feed mill, the soybeans, and he bought them back. So he didn't actually save them, but he told him he was going to buy them for a different use, and then ended up putting them back in the ground. So that was the issue, was just trying to kind of go around the rules. And, you know, not everyone has the same reason for this. You see, I've got another cartoon, but I've seen something on Facebook recently that a lady with big dreadlocks and, you know, purple glasses, you know, somebody thinks a hippie, and over top of her head, doesn't want GMO foods underneath, but will take acid from any stranger. So there could be different reasons. Obviously, maybe health and safety is not her driving factor. It could be this, you know, there's this big company trying to determine, you know, tell us what we need to be eating and telling the farmers what they need to be growing. And is it a way to just sell more of their product? You know, that does help Monsanto. Then this is the big question, then why does the European Union ban GMOs? And I've heard so many people say that it has less to do with the safety and more to do with the trade issues and trying to reduce their competitive disadvantage. Now this is a big one. It's just not natural. We shouldn't be messing with genetic material. But we've been doing it, as Dr. McLaughlin said, we've been doing it for a very long time. Now, it may not have been as intentional as now, but over time. This is what a corn plant looked like many thousands of years ago. Very small. Think we got a whole lot of food out of that? No. But the Native Americans found the plants that it's like, oh, this one's a little better. This one might be a little bit bigger. The seeds might look a little better on this plant. So that's the one they would take, and that's the one that they would plant. So it was kind of more selection type thing. And that changed, it changed the face of what the crop was. And this is what it is today. You know, a little plant like this, ears on the top, to this. And they even, through regular breeding, conventional breeding techniques, were able to tell this corn plant, I only want 1 to 2 ears, and I want them this high, so we can get that combine through. So, I mean, that's kind of fascinating. I went out there. So how, just think of other genetic modifications. That to that. It took a long time for that to happen. But we've been messing with genetics for many, many years. Look at that dog. I'm not sure that picture's real, but it's really So I actually got some of this information when I went to a Common Ground workshop. Dr. McLaughlin provided all this information to us because her expertise is in genetics. She is a very well respected scientist. So we started with cultivation 10,000 years ago. Then just 200 years ago, selective crossbreeding. We started to learn about genetics and how genetics kind of played into traits, the expressing traits. don't act, I cannot tell you what all of these things mean and how they work, but there's kind of this list of how our technology has progressed. Now this mutagenesis in selection, I'll be honest, that kind of sounds scary to me. They would put a chemical on some of these plants, or they would irradiate it, and just kind of see what happened. Is it going to provide me the result that I want? Those products, those crops, were never tested as where if they were safe. There's one of those crops that we eat all the time. Durum wheat was produced by this mutagenesis type selection. Anthroculture and recombinant, all of these things. It's just kind of a progression of technology. There's some more, and then this. Now we're getting into really detailed work that's happening. When they first started genetic modification, it was taking that gene gun, taking it from one plant, and sticking it in a little cell, and making it work. Now they're actually using other organisms to move the DNA around. And it's not just, genetic modification is not just taking something from one organism and putting it into another. BT corn, for example, has a protein from a bacteria that is in the soil naturally, that the little corn borers, it messes their little digestive systems up, and you don't have the corn borer problems. But they would take the bacteria and grow it and put it in a cell, but now they have a different way of getting that into the cell that does not take that manipulation. And they also can take genetic material and kind of flip it. The flavor savored tomato, which is not on the market anymore, but that was kind of the first big GMO food, where they were trying to get the tomatoes not to ripen as quickly so they could stay on the store shelves longer. But that was just kind of flipping some DNA within that plant. So, all along we've been kind of doing some fancy things. Papayas, they've been genetically modified, totally has almost gotten rid of the black spot problem that they had in Hawaii. It almost wiped the entire papaya crop out, and now that's just gone away. And the organic farmers are actually benefiting from that because it reduced the diesel so much that it's kind of a secondary effect. So they're not getting it either. But it was funny, Dr. McLaughlin had this asparagus, and she said that picture came from Greenpeace or Sierra Club or something, avoid GMO foods, but use the asparagus. She's like, now that's one of those mutagenesis things. She's like, so that was really funny to her. And she's like, if they only knew how they made asparagus. There was something about a male, female, you only want the male part of the plant. And all of these things are generally regarded as safe. I think there's some things that we eat all the time, like sodium, generally regarded as safe. And it's all about the dose when we get, some of these things in our food. Water, if you drink enough water, it will kill you if you drink too much. So these are the crops that are on the market now. Field corn, soy, alfalfa, sugar beets, papaya, sweet corn, that's fairly new. Squash is also fairly new. The sweet corns to keep the worms out, and the squash is also for disease. So many of those are for disease. The top four, it's more for inputs, trying to reduce herbicide and insecticide usage. So why do we need it? This does not resonate well with everyone. Some people do not care about feeding the world. They want to just know, is what I'm getting safe for my family. But we're going to have 9 billion mouths to feed in 25, 30 years. That's how we're going to do it. So we're going to need 70% more food. I've heard double the amount of food that we have. We need to do it with less water, less fuel, less fertilizer, less pesticides. And it needs to be high yielding. People still need affordable food. Some people complain that there's too much cheap food, that's the problem. So there's some people that can't afford it now. So do we really need more expensive food? It needs to be sustainable and produced with minimum inputs. Okay. Oh. There it goes. we're trying to produce more with less, and that's our goal. I think the battery does. So food security is number one. This is a picture of land use. I don't have that picture. But so more than half of the geographical area of the United States was needed to produce for, or would be needed, if we did things back in 1929. That's how much land it took to produce food for that population. Today, it's 5 states. That's how much land we have to produce more food. And we're producing more food on that amount of land. Look how many acres we're saving. You think, there's land going out of production. Somebody's already selling to a new development. This is how corn yields have gone in the last, you look at around the 1940s, 50s, that's when hybrid seeds came on the market. I mean, it went straight up. We were able to produce a lot more crops with GMO technology and just genetic modification. This is the process that GMOs have to go through to make sure that they're safe, make sure that they're environmentally safe, that they're safe to consume. 7 to 10 years of research is required. And just as Dr. Newell McLaughlin said, the old stuff, you don't test that. It was just assumed that it'd be okay. Well, it's a corn plant, corn's all right. And they didn't think about that. But once they started to manipulate things a little more, they're like, we need to test this. And it's the only foods that have gone under such rigorous testing. Lots of feeding studies with all of the different livestock, and it's tracked very, very well, and they also look at several environmental aspects. So, when someone asks you, how do I know that they're safe? Along with the testing, so many meals, 2 trillion meals have been consumed, and there has been no documented case that this has caused any type of allergy or illness or sickness. Now someone can kind of claim that that's what it is, but there's no actual this caused this scenario. And we've been eating them, for almost 20 years now. And 600 peer-reviewed scientific studies say it's safe. National Academy of Sciences, medical experts, the World Health Organization, they believe in the science. And even people in the European Union, they believe that they're safe. This is a statement for the American Association of Advancement of Science, and all of these organizations. Now this is where it gets tough, having those conversations with other moms. We're going to have to put this in a way that they can take it in, because spouting this off, it's probably not a good idea. And we saw this from the Dr. Oz video. You know how they got those tumors? That's a good visual, isn't it? Those rats were developed to get tumors. That's the rats they test medicines and treatments on to see if they can reduce the tumors, to reduce the chance of the tumors. So they used those rats knowing that they would get tumors. So that's like, most people don't know that. They just look at that and they're like, oh my gosh, if I eat that, I'm going to look like that. And have all those problems. There was a pig study, looking at this, that they said that it caused lots of inflammation and stomach problems in the pigs. Well, they picked and chose these on how they looked. They said there was no difference in inflammation between the two, and they said the pigs that they were feeding the GMO corn, they used super low quality feed. The headline, it made you think, the abstract, that there was a problem, but if you actually went and read the study, they said there was no conclusive evidence that there was any difference. But they used stuff like this, just for dramatic effect. And that's what the media picked up on. That's what they're going to use. This is kind of the throwback to the European Union on labeling. It's not really based on science. We don't want it. It's not really based on science. And again, it comes down to emotions. So, there is a myth that GMOs are not labeled. There are voluntary measures on the market. Organic. If people want to avoid them, you just go and buy organic food. And actually, Where am I? Okay, okay. I go to 10. I think I got 5 more minutes. So organic, and I think some of the organic industry is against the labeling because then it's going to kind of muddy their waters because people already have that choice. And then if we come out with a non-GMO label, is it really going to give them that much more of an advantage for their customers? So typically they're against the GMO labeling. And there's another group called non-GMO verified, which is a voluntary measure that some companies are going into, that they can put that label on their food if they want. So voluntary measures are in place. Now, what if we put everything that was in a product on the label? This product may contain genes from the toxic deadly nightshade family. You know what that product would be? Tomatoes, yep. So, what if we put all of that on the label? Product of radiation breeding derived from chemically induced mutations, product of wide genetic cross of all dual rescue constituents altered by mutagenesis produced with genetically engineered ingredients. So, flour, canola oil, sugar cane, butter, strawberry. If that's what we put on the label, people would freak out. And all of that is in there. Another myth, big ag benefits from GM crops. They said smaller countries are now actually being able to produce more acres because of genetic modification crops. And it's really helping their economies. Is it bad for the environment? 1 billion pounds less pesticides. The biggest case of that is with cotton. They have cut out 97% of the pesticides required to grow cotton with the GM varieties. We're able to conservation till, no-till, because of this technology, so we're a lot less soil erosion, wind erosion. Think of all the topsoil that we're saving. I mean, just so many benefits, one after the other. And the halo effect, that's what I was talking about, that the organic farmers were actually benefiting from the technology as well. So, we need to remove the panic. We need to explain what genetic modification is, talk about the old ways versus the new ways, how much more targeted it is now, how much more precise, talk about the regulations and safety studies, and the benefits to the consumer. They don't want to know that it helps you grow, get more profit. They don't want to farmer, how it helps Monsanto. They want to know how it affects them. And when it comes down to their pocketbooks, most people are driven by how much food costs. And at the end of the day, that's what they're going to look at. I'm going to hunt people down, have strong opinions on subjects they don't understand, and I'm going to bop them in the head. And we can, that would be the fun way. But again, we need to have real conversations. So this was in the news recently. Why are they giving in? Why are they giving in? Think about it. They did absolutely nothing, but it was a way to appease their customers. The recipe has not changed. They use oats. Oats are not genetically modified. They use sugar from sugar cane. That is not genetically modified. So they didn't change anything. Cheerios is successful because we all know that that is a good, safe food. Everybody's been feeding it to their kids for years and years and years. They didn't change a thing, but they made really good headlines. And they also said they were going to keep it that way.
Is it labeled on the box?
Hmm?
Did they put something on there like not GMO or?
No. At least not yet. And this kind of goes back to the lady with the acid. I don't want to eat anything that's genetically modified. It might not be healthy. She's got her hand in chips. And I find that, you know, we're cognizant of that. You know, I have some friends on Facebook that I know that, you know, they're very vocal about it, and then they're outside smoking a cigarette, or have their hands in a bag of Cheetos, and I'm like, and I just keep my mouth shut most of the time.
It's hard though, isn't it?
It is, and you know, even us when we're you know talking about things, you know, I try to talk about healthy eating a lot of the time, and it's not always easy. We get busy. It's like I don't like going through the drive-through, but sometimes, you know, yeah, you gotta think. What's the most important thing right now? Getting the kids to all their activities or cooking a meal at home. And sometimes you gotta make so. It's like people are watching me. No, they are. But it's about us being real, because on my blog I talk about that. Since I realized that we've kind of fallen in this bad habit again of making everything convenient, and we kind of pay for it. It's like I gained 10 pounds that I lost. So you kind of got to refocus and try it again. But you talk about that. It's like, we're not all perfect. Yes.
What about the person that's changed? Now we have airtight houses. We're all inside our houses. We're not breathing the fresh air and getting the vitamin D from the sun. We're drinking water that's been chemically changed. I mean, the environment has changed, not just our food.
Right. You're right. There are so many factors that could be affecting our health. And like I said, for some reason, agriculture has always had a target on it because it's easy to point to. And we brought that up with the Environmental Working Group. It's like, why are you always picking on us? I want to see the study that says how many people are using, all those weed killers on their lawn with no regulation whatsoever. They don't have to get crop certified to use that. And it could be, their lawn could be right down by a drainage ditch. But, they don't want that.
Did you say Cheerios, you shouldn't eat too many of them or something?
No, I never said that. We eat Cheerios. My husband eats Cheerios every single morning. But what I was saying is that they came out with a statement that said that their Cheerios would never be genetically modified. So they were appeasing the public, but the fact is it was never genetically modified to begin with. So here's some of the resources that I use when you're trying to find some answers for people. And you got to take the opportunities, especially on Facebook. If you see somebody talking about it, maybe refer to them to some of these sites. However, I'll be honest, that kind of frustrates me when somebody's instantly, oh, you got to check out this article, you got to, read this, read that. I just want to know your personal experience. How is it helping me? Why do you choose to use those? And I think that resonates the most with people. And I put my cards on the table. Please send me an email. We have the Common Ground group, which is very similar. I love this Our Food link. I mean, that goes right into what Common Ground is about. We've got a Facebook group where anytime kind of a hot button issue is out there, so I try to share that and maybe some ways that you can have a conversation about it. But you also, you don't want to turn your friends off on Facebook because you see all those political stuff. Everybody gets into the politics, and it's like you almost want to, not unfriend them, but you hide them because it's like you're tired of hearing that kind of thing. But maybe just if you see somebody talking, always turn it into an opportunity to turn it into something positive. And I love this Best Food Facts at Work. They always have third-party scientists, answering questions that people have. That is a great resource.